Okay. Ihr seid soweit? Okay. Ja, herzlich willkommen auf der Studioszene. Diesmal in Köln, nicht in der Musikmesse Frankfurt oder irgendwas, sondern in der Homebase vom Musik Media Verlag bzw. Sound und Recording. Schön, dass ihr alle hier seid. Schön, dass so viele hier sind, obwohl drüben irgendwie ein anderer Workshop läuft und da hinten auch noch ein anderer. Freut mich sehr. Ja, was ich euch zeigen will. Wir machen das Ganze auf Deutsch. Oder gibt es wen, der was dagegen hat? You prefer English, okay. Would English be okay for the other guys as well? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, basically, I'm going to explain a little bit about sound design in a sampler. I do this with an example of our newest software piano distributed by Native Instruments called the Noire. And I just want to show you guys that basically 20 years ago when we sampled a piano, it was just recording some of the notes, putting it in a sampler, you'll be able to play it and somebody says, okay, it sounds almost like a piano, so that's okay. But now we want to push the boundaries, we want to make it more special, we want to create sounds that have something to do with the piano, but maybe they are not in the first place related to it. So maybe it's not even for the pianist who's classically trained. If he plays some of our presets and some of our sounds, they will say, well, it's nice, but I can't play as fast as I would like to play, or I can't play classical pieces because that's not the use case. For us, it's more a sound design use case, or colleagues of mine who do a lot of mixing, they always tell me, okay, there are some tracks in there. When I get the mixing session, there's a piano, like a real sample piano, but on top of that, there's a piano layer that's more like a cloud sound or a pad sound or something, but it really complements the original piano sound. And that's basically what we try to cover. So we want to do the original, pure, true piano sound version in a really detailed manner, but also we want to distribute sound design possibilities. And most of that is only possible because we have the sampler, and there we can use different groups that have different sounds in them, that we recorded in various ways, and I would like to just give you an insight on how we do that, or what we did and how we come up with ideas for doing this. Basically, I would like to show you a short trailer video with the sound of Noire. It's basically a demo track, so you hear some sounds that sounds like piano. There are other sounds that are a bit more percussive or a bit more cloud-like, pad-like, so you don't really think it would be a piano maybe, and all of the sounds come from the Noire library. So let me tell you quickly about how where we come from and how we are producing those kinds of instruments. Basically, my colleague Uli Baranowski and I, we did a couple of normal piano libraries. That's basically, as I told you, recording tone for tone, different dynamics of a piano, recording some noises of the piano. For example, the sound doesn't only come from the instrument when you press the key, but also when you release the key or when you press the pedal, and so you have to get an idea of how this instrument works. Then you come up with a plan how to dissect all those sounds, all those small elements, put them, record them separately. So basically damping all the strings and then only pressing the pedal and making sure that everything is really not tonal, only getting the noises, and afterwards putting it all together and making a real instrument again from that. That sounds like the original, or that's really close to a recording of the original. The Vintage D we did distributed by Best Service, was a classical Steinway D grand piano in the Bauer Studios in Ludwigsburg. It got really high praises on the internet. Everybody's saying, yeah, that's a really cool piano sound. Still today, even it's like 10 years old or even longer, and people still use it a lot. We have a colleague who does a lot of film sound, and he uses this piano like almost in every track he does. Then we got approached by Native Instruments because they said, okay, we want to have something special, something interesting. We want to do a piano with you, but we don't want to do a normal piano. Let's do something cool, something different. Luckily, we already found this instrument, which is the Klavins 370. It was the largest upright piano in existence, built in the late 80s by David Klavins. And so we got the chance to record it. And you see two interfaces. On the left, the day version, basically, you have a normal piano. We have some options for sound shaping as well, but that's the normal sound, really closely related to a piano. On the right side, we have the night version that's made up of sources, for example, only recording overtones of the piano, only recording the resonance of the piano, but also we brought our piano technician along, and he showed us how to create weird sounds. For example, taking some metal objects for piano tuning, putting it between the strings and then playing, or just rubbing along the strings, or taking the whole mechanics off and just pushing it really hard against the whole piano. So there was stuff we would never have thought of because we thought we break everything, but he was just going at it. Yeah, and that's basically effects noises that we've created, and they also complement the original piano. So you can basically layer both instruments. You play a normal piano, but then if you turn up the night version, you get like weird sounds, and it gets more real. It doesn't sound like a piano performance. It sounds like a whole Steve Reich kind of thing with a piano ensemble and 10 people just plucking different parts of the piano or hitting it or something like this. Okay, so that was the first Native Instruments collaboration we did. Afterwards, they said, okay, the day version is really nice, so let's do new acoustic pianos, let's throw the old ones out and get new ones. So we recorded the Gentleman, the Maverick, and the Grandeur, more basic versions, bread and butter of a piano, of different piano models. And after that, we said, okay, basically you have everything done in the piano world, so let's move on, let's do something else. But then we talked to David Klavins again, and he told us, yeah, I'm building something really special. It's the unicorder. The unicorder means it only has one string per key, not only in the bass region, but also in the lower register and in the discant and the high register. And so it sounds really pure. There's not much modulation between the strings. The tuning is really pure. And the collaboration was done together with Nils Frau, who got his input, his ideas in. And so we had a preparation. That's what you see on the picture, the blue stripe up there. That's a felt stripe. And this felt stripe dampens the string, but it's in between the hammer and the string. So you first take the hammer, hit the felt, and then the felt gets pushed against the string. And so you get the noise by hitting the felt, you have a dampened piano tone, the overtones change, and also maybe the felt also hits the neighboring strings, so it can be a little bit dirty in the upper register, but that's what he uses and what he wanted. Basically, he used a felt moderator to do this, but also he used just a T-shirt, and he cut it up and put it there, and then he had a cotton sound that had more like a attack like this, and not like a but a ch-ch-ch. And that's what we also recorded. So we sampled this instrument 3 times, a normal version, a felt version, and a cotton version. And then we had the idea, okay, then we can use more sound shaping and use other stuff and use impulse responses and convolution to shape the sound and make it different. I will show you that in a second on Noire. Because again, after we did this, we said, okay, everything's done in the piano world, let's move on to something else. We also did something else, but Nils came back to us. He called Uli and said, okay, I bought a really, really nice Yamaha CFX grand piano. And by the way, I'm now in the Funkhaus in Berlin. I have my studio in there. That's exactly the place where we recorded the Una Corda, but it was under different management. So basically we had to sneak in and there was nothing there. But this time Nils had a really, really nice studio, nice console, nice equipment. They did everything new, the cabling, the power lines, everything. So it's a really nice studio. And then he said, okay, I have this nice grand piano, and also the little trick about it, I managed to get a felt moderator in there. So in a grand piano, it's really difficult to do this because you have the horizontal strings and you're having the hammers hitting from below. And if you want to put a felt in here, then it just flaps down. It has to be stiff enough, but it can't be too stiff, otherwise you don't have a sound, you have a sound. So you have to find something in between, and he really worked on this quite a lot with his piano technician to get it right, and I will show you that in a second as well, to get this felt sound, a damped grand piano, which is not that common. And also the nice idea about it is you can turn it on and off by just moving it mechanically. And so we had 2 versions. We have the pure version, a really, really nice CFX grand piano with new hammers, a new set of hammers that Carsten, the piano technician, tuned to Nils' liking. The whole tuning was done by Carsten, also a big part of it, a very big part, because he has a really nice way of doing this. And then we thought, okay, what else can we do? We recorded some other noises, and I will just show you some pictures of the session. That, for example, is just the tuning of the piano, getting everything right. We tuned it like in the morning, in the evening, and we checked all the tones we did in between to make sure that we never got out of tune or dropped too far out. Piano tuning is another topic. You can talk about it for hours with lots of people and lots of ideas about it, but Carsten is the guy, also as David Klavins, the other guy. Those are 2 people who are really, really crazy skilled about it. Yeah, that's Carsten, shaping the hammers, getting everything right. He worked like 2 days on the piano, even after everything was good and ready. He came to the studio and worked on it all the time. And then he prepared the moderator, so basically that's the metal part that you can put in the piano, and then you have this small lever to turn it up, turn it down. And also there we didn't stop just saying let's get some felt and see how that goes, but we got different parts of felt, and so we tried it, and for a whole day we tried out how does this sound in the higher register, how the other, and in the lower register, and all this. So we created some kind of a Frankenstein felt grand version that even Nils hadn't done up to this point. So we also put a lot of work in this. That's a microphone setup of the session. So we have lots of stereo and mono microphones. Basically, if you want to get them all in phase later on, no way, we wouldn't be done now. So you pick the nice sounding microphones. You see what works with which sound, and you have to figure out how to mix the individual noises and tones. What we ended up mostly was this setup. That's a top view of basically Nils' setup. You have 2 M50 microphones Over the hammers, you have a Coles microphone down at the bass region, and he called it like almost a piano Decker tree. That's what he likes. It sounds like what he hears when he sits in front of the piano, and the Coles really gives the oomph of the bass he needs. And then we thought, okay, oomph of the bass, that sounds nice, because he also used pickups, he put it through PAs. He's not the classical piano player who plays in a concert hall without a PA. He brings a PA and he puts some stuff in there and synthesizers and everything. So we thought, okay, let's get more oomph. And so we used an NS10 speaker below the piano. We had to figure out to find the right direction. But within the session that took 3 weeks, we blew 2 of those speakers. So we had get another one from Cologne, from our studio, the spare speaker of the real NS10. And we recorded like every tone also underneath and getting the really oomphy, big bass sound. That's Noire. That's how it turned out, and let's have a look in Contact what that means now. I've loaded up the pure version. We'll see how. I'll also load the felt version, and we'll have a quick comparison about the sound of it. You hear the damped tone, but also, I mean, if you hear it in a real studio setting, you hear the attack is different and the whole thing feels different. For now, I will have a look at the pure version, just because the whole sound designy stuff, it changes the instrument a lot, and I think it's easier to hear it here with this instrument. Okay, there are a couple of things I would like to show you that I already talked about. Let's cover the normal piano stuff first and then go more deeper into the sound design region. I've loaded up the pure instrument, so basically that's how how we feel the instrument sounded in the room. That's how the mechanics and the pedals and the noises and everything is like balanced in a normal fashion. And we have some knobs we've developed for our pianos over the years. The first one is the color knob. The color knob here changes the sound a lot. Now you also see it's called hard now, the color. And if I go down here, soft version. So basically, and even if I go harder on it, it never gets really hard and punchy and poppy and everything, because what this knob does is changing the mapping of the piano. We have, I'm not sure about it at the moment, I think we got 22 dynamic layers, 22 samples. If you turn it into the hard direction, it changes the mapping of the samples, so the softer ones get pushed down even further. You still have the whole dynamic range, but you only use, like, in the end, 5 samples of those 22, but you use the whole dynamic range. You have the dynamic, you have the volume differences, the sound difference, all this. In the other direction, the same thing. If you go to soft, you only use the lower velocities, but they're spread out up to the really loudest part. Just because we feel it changes the instrument a lot, and it's really like having a couple of different grand pianos in one instrument. If I want to play something Nils Frau style soft, then of course I will change the color knob, and I wouldn't just limit my dynamic range and only play really soft and make sure that I only reach the lowest dynamics, because then everything is really soft, and if I mix it later, I have to push it up with limiters and everything, or get the gain right of it. And that's what we do in the instrument from the get-go. That's what the color knob does. And for Noire, we also have the color knob in all the other pianos, starting from the vintage D. But the tonal shift version, that's something we've developed for Noire. What this does is a bit different. I just play you a quick part again. It's almost like a harpsichord here. And harpsichord or cembalo, it's a good part of it, or good keyword for it, because that's what George Martin did when he recorded the Beatles. In one song, they slowed down the recording, so they let the tape run at half speed, recorded a normal piano performance, because it was supposed to sound classical, but it was also difficult to play. And then it got easier to play, it's only half speed. And when they played it back at normal speed, it sounded like a harpsichord or cembalo, because the overtones, everything changes. You make every tone shorter, and you get the same information in a short amount of time. And that's what we do here. So we take not the sample that's mapped to the key, the original key, but we take another one that's maybe higher, and then we pitch it down to get to this direction. And if you pitch it down, it sounds almost like a bell sound. And if you go the other direction, make it harder. And it gets more obvious in the higher registers. Sounds harpy-like, like a banjo on some notes or something like this. And that's, if you want to do it on your own, on a performance, it's really hard to do. And so we thought, okay, in the sampler, it's really cool. You can speed it up, you can slow it down. We have to program it, but it's possible and it's there. So let's do it. Let's see what we can come up with there. And especially if we wanted to match, like get a real deep sounding grand piano sound, then our favorite version that we use is like turning the color knob a bit down and also the tonal shift a little bit, because it is a little artificial, of course. It's never how the original instrument sounded. But yeah, it gets me the sound of every individual note in the right manner. And you get a really soft version of the piano without playing with playback speeds and stuff like this. Okay, that's the more normal stuff. Continuing with this, we dissected the piano, so we have all those kinds of noises, of sample bits. As I talked about the release samples, I turned them up quite a bit, and let's listen to it without. It sounds like 80s sampler. It just takes the envelope and there's no room, nothing. Still works if you turn it on. You hear the hammer, the damper getting on the string and vibrating and just pushing it back again until it releases. So now it's really super loud. But you hear the original Funkhaus room we've recorded it in. And that is a big part of making it real sounding original. Another thing is the resonance. The resonance is what you get when you push the original piano pedal. We do this in a different manner than some others. There are people or companies out there that sample the key without the pressed pedal and then again with the pressed pedal, and so you alternate. When you press the pedal, it selects the group with the pressed pedal samples, and if you depress it, then you get the normal sustain. But if you are a piano player, or at least like you tried, you played it like me. I had classical training when I was 12, so I don't know anything about it. That's why I brought my small keyboard. But if you then play a piano, basically, if you want to hold the note or use the sustain, you never think, okay, I'm going to hold this note, so I press it now and then I play. But you play and then you press, and that's what all the other way of playing the piano. That's why it doesn't work to make it to create a piano in this manner, because the first one you play is always without the pedal. It only holds the longer note, but you never get those overtones, the resonance, or anything, and you only get it on the second note. And if you have it in a performance, okay, no, maybe you don't recognize it. I talked even to some other developers, and they said, okay, we never thought about it, so it's not that obvious. But the nice idea of doing it this way is we have control over the resonance. So we don't have to say it's always the original resonance. That would be the basic version, how we got it here. That matches how it sounds in reality. So let's let's go somewhere here. I press the sustain pedal. I depress it. And now I turn it up quite a bit. Without. And you hear like there's a whole room resonating, and that's how the whole string, all the other strings of the grand piano resonating when hitting the one string. And we record this individually to get more control. And even on some instruments, like the unicorder, you can mute the original note you play and only play the resonances, or the giant dark night version. We have overtones we've recorded. Those overtones come into play if you don't only press one key, but you press some more. And to get overtones. It's a bit hard to hear over here. But the idea is, if you press two keys on the piano, it's not only those two keys that resonate, but also they interact, and you get a different structure of the overtones. And that's what we record and what we push in later, because otherwise you would have to record all the combinations in different velocities and everything. So that's more like a live project. It's impossible to do. We have an attack, but we only use it if you do like more sound designy stuff. For example, if I make it a bit longer, I get something like this. It sounds a bit a pad-like. But I will come to this in a second. I still would like to keep the attack at the moment. We have several noises. For example, even pressing the normal pedal on the piano, I make it really loud now. I have a pedal key here. So that happens when I press down the pedal. And I can also dissect it and make it a bit more obvious. I have the rumble of the whole piano. I have the noise of the strings resonating. And I, of course, have the damper sound. Okay, also, we have mechanical noises. We have those noises when you press the key. And when you depress it. And that's a big part of how Nils plays, for example. He mics it really close, so you get a lot of sound of the mechanics. Also for the upright piano, if you mic it really close, you are close to the mechanics. And also you damp the strings, so you get a lot of mechanic sounds. And that's more like even having two instruments in one, percussive instruments and a tonal instrument. Okay, I don't want to get into detail with everything here. I would like, of course, to show you the sub, as I showed you, the NS10 speaker below the piano. Good. So, this is without, and this is with. The problem is it's a voice optimized PA. We don't have a subwoofer, so usually it would be crazy to turn it up this high. In the studio, the subwoofer rumbles. Yeah, but to me it's not obvious here. Maybe it's a bit. Yeah, it gets a bit stronger, but usually at that setting you have like a real big body sound of the piano. So if we would have the other speakers, it would be possible to hear. Yeah, we tried that, and that's why we started 3 minutes later, just because to get something working. But it will work in the speaker comparison that's coming up. Okay, so that's for the basic parts, dissecting, having the idea, dissecting everything, getting different groups, having control over volumes of different noises and different sounds. Here, on the effects tab, we have normal stuff, everybody knows, EQ, we have the transient designer, compressor, stuff like this, but also we have the styles, and that's the next thing I would like to show you. Styles change the sound of the piano and the resonances and everything, and also you can say, I would like to get the noises also into the style section, but you can also leave them out. That's also interesting in a second. And we have 3 different categories of this. We have timbre, so that's basically changing the sound, the EQ curve, the sound of it, the feel of it. More subtle, The other thing is having moving sounds. That's like, okay, like a tremolo or something like this that you have on a Rhodes piano as well and other things. But we also have the continuous stuff, and that's something interesting. We have here the first sound. Let me play you the key again. And if I turn it on, I get this. And I only press the key, so I only do. It just sustains. That's why it's called continuous, because it's you can't really play it short. And the main idea behind that being that we have. Let me have a look here. That we have impulse responses, and those impulse responses you know from all the convolution reverb, so you can sample different rooms or you can sample different reverb units and stuff like this. But we did an instrument with best service called the Galaxy X, it's like 10 years ago or so, and there we experimented quite a bit, and we put some stuff in Unicorda and also in Noire. And if you listen to a normal impulse response, let me get you something like this. The original Saal 3 of Nils, we sampled there as well. That sounds, I don't want to blow everything here, make it a bit softer. That sounds like this. Unspectacular, but if you then go to the effects or style section, we put stuff like this in there. Also clicks. That's the crackling sustain, stuff like this, and you can use you can use anything. You could just throw in there in the convolution engine and see how it sounds. And maybe you have a sample and you think, oh, that sounds really, really cool. I should try that, and it's really boring. So it took us with Galaxy X. It literally took us years to experiment to find out what works and what doesn't. And usually, it's not that you hear it and you think, okay, that will work, but it's more like. You get a short list of stuff you want to try, and for example, those bubbles or so, that's stuff that works really well, and you get, you get really weird sounds. You get crazy overtones that come from the piano, triggered from the piano, but that are in the impulse response, and that you get out of the impulse response because you have a piano that has those overtones. Okay. So there, I can change this sound, and if I then go back to the anatomy page, I can turn up the attack, and then I get some beautiful, or not that beautiful, pad sounds. And so on. You get the idea. So that's why we included an attack slider to get it more into a synthesized pad machine, something like this. You can do lots of stuff with this. So that's the styles. There are lots of impulse responses. And if you still leave the noises in, for example, I go here, get the attack, turn it a little bit up, and then I go to my mechanical. Okay, I would like to add a room to this on the tail and everything, but you get the idea. You have something like really close, weird sounding, and you have like this pad sound cloud in the back. The last thing I would quickly like to show you is something we also developed here with for Noire. It's called the particles engine. The particles engine is the idea of getting some aleatoric movement in there, getting some additional notes. It's not an arpeggiator or something. It reacts on what you play, but it adds different tonalities and different notes on that. So I turn the particles engine on. We just see the close by. Yeah, I go with the 2 octave ones, so that means if I play one note, it spreads out really far. Plays low ones, high ones, adds them. I also have the original piano on. I only move over to the particles engine here. It's a texture I get here. I only play one key. I keep it pressed. We have the decay super long, so it adds additional notes. I can vary the density. I can make all the notes a bit quicker. And also I can vary the sounds. We've added some additional versions of it. It's not only the normal piano tonal version, but also we have a plugged piano in here, so we plug the whole instrument. And it just adds random notes with only some boundaries, so it's aleatoric. We give them an idea, a frame, and within this frame, the software generates us new notes, new stuff we can come up with. We can also change the attack of this, so we can say, okay, the particles engine should come in later. And so if I go with the original piano, make it feel like a 50-50 mix, and I play something, get the real piano. And it generates the whole cloud behind it, and to make it more dense and more effectful, I can also add a diffusion delay. I will just go to the dark or the dense diffusion. Let's do this one. Okay, so now in the back I don't hear the individual notes, but I hear a whole cloud of something. If you want to do it, if you do a film composition or something like this, and if you want to add something, you have a normal piano, you have to find the right sound to add to this, but this already blends because it's from the original piano. It has the original sounds in this room, so it works together really well. Yes.
So everything what you're showing around this library is really nice. Gotta say it's really nice selection of all the processing which you did. But I'm curious if you're gonna go more detailed how certain of the algorithms you made them work, like how it is done. Or it's not the key point of presentation.
It's not the key point because we're almost done, actually. They still have to set up the rest of the part, but we can talk about it after the presentation. It's no problem.
I
Yeah.
was like thinking like maybe like just checking out how the library is made, and then we are going into how it was made. But
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a long process, and that's why it has so many little steps in there. That's why it's more like an overview of what stuff we came up with and the ideas we had, and then. The rest is for after the presentation or up to you to to do something nice as well. Okay, are there any other questions at this point? Yes?
Question about the tonal shift.
Yes.
Is this like an engine you program to the instrument?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't record...
No. I mean, of course, it would be possible to do this. Okay, yeah, thanks. You could do this, but that would mean to record every note pitched at least an octave down, an octave up. So it would be, the library wouldn't be 30 gigabytes, it would be like, I don't know, 200 something. There are people out there that do it like this, but I'd like to get a small footprint. And 30 gigabytes isn't a small footprint, but yeah, for what it is, it is. Okay, any other questions? If not, have fun at the Studioszene. Come again for the speaker comparison. And okay, there's
I have one more question.
Okay.
What are you doing next?
Me?
Yeah.
The instrument. Yeah. We did a library called Thrill. That has orchestral effects and has really scary textures and dramatic textures from an orchestra and from all sound designy kind of stuff. And it's going into this direction, but that's the only thing I can say at the moment. But I mean, we don't have a piano on our mind at the moment, but this is always subject to change, because if you might have heard David Klavins, who built the giant piano, he also built the 450 giant, even bigger giant, so the mega giant, 80 centimeters more of string length. And this actually, that's in Funkhaus at the moment, so Nils has it, and he's still working on it and preparing it, and we saw it, we haven't heard it yet. So this might be something, but I'm not really sure about this. yeah, we'll see. All right. Thank you, and yeah, see you around.